Alright, I'm gonna have to do this again, because the last video I took was just fucking all over the place. Alright, so I've been working on a theory lately. It's been upcoming for the last couple months. Still not completely finished. I still have a few holes and a few, little details that I need to figure out, but, so here's my theory as to why people who are emotional are, in a general sense, less logical. Okay, so let me explain how emotions work and how those are triggered and caused and things like that. Emotions are a genetic response. It's something that's been in our DNA since, well, whenever emotions developed in us, fucking Neanderthals, or whatever the fuck it is, far, far, far back. We've had it for an incredibly long time. It was at one point a defense mechanism, before we were able to do this critical thinking ability, in a time where there were untold dangers at any given corner, we needed a genetic response, something that's instantaneous, within the blink of an eye, or a blink of a thought, a blink of a feeling, something like that. And this is what emotions are. They're a way to discern a threat or external stimuli in front of you. They're a way to discern whether or not it's a good thing to you or a bad thing to you. This was used in a many fucking subhuman fucking species back, as a way to immediately discern danger or good things from in a second, because back in that time it could be a split-second decision whether or not you die. It's a fight or flight instinct, these emotions of ours, the way that we instantaneously know how we feel about something just by looking at it or seeing it, before we even realize why we think or feel that way. It's a genetic response that we have. Now, here's why that's, well, first let me explain the critical thinking. Critical thinking is something we learn afterwards. It's something that comes with our brain developing and us being able to fully use and be capable of processing and explaining our environment. It's not instinctual. Yes, it comes because our brain develops. So I guess in a technical way, it is biology by association, but it's not something we are inherently built with. We are not capable at birth or in the early stages of development of thinking of these complex processes of taking in stimuli and categorizing them and explaining them and associating them. We don't do this. We do, however, feel. And that's the difference here. This is what I want to point out specifically. Feelings always come before critical thinking. We will always feel something before we think about why we feel that way, or whether or not we're justified in feeling that way about something. And this is where the divide between people who are more emotional and more logical, this is where it happens. People who are more emotional, and those who are more emotional to an extreme degree, are much less likely to go past the feeling stage. They stop at, how do I feel about this? And once they realize, I feel this is good or bad, they stop. They do not question it. They do not logically think, could I be wrong here? Is this a thing I should or shouldn't be worried about? No. By the time they felt what they felt, they already know what they feel. They do not question anything they feel. They feel that they're in danger. They feel that this thing is bad. Therefore, they're in danger. Therefore, this thing must be bad. They feel like the situation is hopeless. Therefore, the situation must be hopeless. This is where they stop. They stop at their genetic programming and their fight or flight response. They do not take the necessary step of self-realization and self-debunking and critical, self-actualization. They do not think, am I wrong? Are they right? Is it possible that I misunderstood something? They stop at, how do I feel? And once they realize, I feel this is bad, they say, this is bad. Once they realize, I feel this is good, they say, this is good. And this is where a lot of logical fallacies happen. Because at this point, many people will simply put up a wall towards any other beliefs other than what they feel is true. And not only that, a lot of more emotional people will do this to the point where they will not even go talk to anyone with an open mind. You can tell them no matter what you want, what you want, no matter how logical it is, their feelings will always override what is logically said and what you can logically explain. And many people take this even farther. And they will use, and it's kind of ironic in a sense, because they do use their critical thinking and problem solving, but not to self-reflect. They do it to specifically look up, to specifically find information that they feel validates what they believe. No matter how many conclusions are drawn or how much stretching needs to be done in order to do this. And this is a problem, because while it is technically logical, it is untrue logic. It is simply us using, it's a very biased way to do logic. It's an emotional logic. It's a, I feel this way, so therefore I'm right. Now, let me find other things that I feel that I can conclude, no matter how easily it's debunked, support what I believe. This is how so much logic in science gets riddled with bias. Is because people, and everyone does it. There is no one who has the capability of emotions who doesn't do it to something. We are logical human beings to an extent, but we are emotional human beings in that same respect. And when someone feels something so strongly about something, you cannot convince them that they are logically wrong, even if the entire rest of the world sees they are logically wrong. And unless you can get them to be less emotionally invested in what they believe or what they think, it will never change. Someone can justify what they feel emotionally a million billion different ways by logically jumping from one point to another that are simply associated with each other in order to form a line of unrelated things that are only related by association, a very small amount. They can stretch the truth as far as they want in order to justify what they believe. No matter how much of a logical fallacy it is, they can do it, and it doesn't change unless they can be emotionally uninvested enough in order to consider points outside of their own. It's unfortunately, that's unfortunately one of the worst parts about living in a logical, quote-unquote, society that still has emotions, is half of society will believe logically on one issue, then that same half of society will believe emotionally on one issue, and then we get this huge mush of, well, some people are technically correct on something while they're incredibly biased and emotionally invested in something else, and they just support their things. They just support these points with illogical fallacies, believing they're just as valid as the actual logical conclusion that they believe. It's unfortunately one of the worst parts about living in our society, with both logical ability and emotional DNA. It's hard to discern between the two once you feel about something. And it's hard to just tell yourself. It's literally antithetical to logic to feel something, because it blinds you logically. And once you feel something, you're so much more likely to drop logical conclusions in order to continue to feel the way you do, because it's a biological defensive response. And it's so unfortunate, because it means we will always be hypocritical creatures. We will believe logical conclusions on one end and believe logical fallacies based on emotions on another end. It's just the way we are. And I hate it so much, but it's the truth. But also, emotions are not the bad thing either. Only when it comes to logic do they get in the way. Because emotions are still needed. There are situations where it's like your feelings probably matter more. Like if you feel someone's trying to kill you, well, you're not going to be like, well, okay, let me put it like this. If someone's coming at you with a knife and you feel you're in danger, you don't need time to think, whether or not, oh, is this person, just running at me trying to chop onions behind me? No. That's the kind of thing emotions were genetically programmed for. Those split-second decisions, like, get the hell out of there. And it's still necessary because there are situations like that. But, unfortunately, people use emotions to back up conclusions that they don't genetically need them for. They use them for matters which should be exclusively of logical debate. And that's where we get a lot of emotional logic fallacies. It's from feelings of people who can't accept that how they feel is incorrect. So anyways, thanks for watching. Bye.